Well, hey, everybody, it's the Buckeye Breakdown podcast with our instant analysis postgame show after a week 4 win, third game of the season win for the Ohio State Buckeyes. They knocked off Marshall today. The final score would show that it was a convincing win. It was 49-14. But I don't know that Ohio State played anywhere even close to what it's capable of playing. We got a lot to talk about. Certainly some good things, but as Ryan Day said afterward, and I think pretty accurately did, a mixed bag. Definitely some things that are worth pointing out that the Buckeyes need to work on. So we'll get into it all here. Coming up next on Buckeye Breakdown.
We've got the whole crew together as we cover Ohio State with our instant analysis from Ohio State.
There's something that doesn't feel right.
Unbelievable effort from him today. Is E.J. Liddell going to crack the first team All-Big Ten?
I think he can be the guy. I'm not trying to start a quarterback controversy.
He seems to have the durability. He certainly has the toughness. This is the question on a lot of people's minds here. Welcome to Buckeye Breakdown.
Well, hey, everybody, and welcome to Buckeye Breakdown. I'm Brendan Gulick along with Anthony Meglin. I'm at home. Anthony's on site. And we just wrapped up a big win, 49-14, Ohio State knocking out the Marshall Thundering Herd. Big on the scoreboard, right? Big performances, big plays. There was a lot of big. And I think there was big on both sides. It was big, good plays, and holy crap, kick the ball in bounds. Big screw-ups. There were some moments that were pretty frustrating, and I guess I don't want to like overly harp on some of the bad things, Anthony, but it was a game that, especially in the first half, I mean, I literally on a notepad, I literally wrote down, this was a disaster, even though the Buckeyes are leading by 2 scores.
It was definitely an interesting start. And this is what coaches are so afraid of coming out of the bye week. You have 14 days off. You played 2 weeks ago, and then you have that improvement week where you only really work out 3 days a week, and they can preach it as much as they want. And the guys truly can buy in all week long. But when you have that week off, there is a little bit of rust that you do see coming out of that. And it was evident today. Marshall takes the opening kickoff, has two big third down conversions on that drive, and they go 75 yards to the house for a touchdown. And it was like, uh-oh, here we go. And then Ohio State comes back. Emeka explodes for a massive one. You're like, you feel okay. But then it just was a little bit uneasy, I'd say. Just some things that you want to be super clean, especially 4 weeks into the season, that just weren't. I wouldn't say it's something to sound the alarm over. It just was kind of like, we tried to prepare against this. We weren't able to, and you had to grind a little bit in that first half to make it look, to put it all back together.
I mean, look, the first 3 games of the season are against teams that aren't going to define Ohio State this year, right? And you walk out of these 3 games with your 3 wins, and you outscore your opponent something close to 160-20. Trying to think, it was like 52-6, 56-0, 49-14. So more than 150 points for sure.
Math guy.
Math guy. So listen, I mean, we're at the point in the season where you kind of say, okay, you're building. You looked at the injury report before the game today, and you're about as healthy as you could realistically hope to be. Nobody seemed to have a serious injury in this game. Obviously, the only guy you were missing today was Tyleik Williams. So you're going into Big Ten play with an offense that is clicking on all cylinders and looks great. But it just felt clunky to me. There were some moments, and maybe it felt different on site. I'd love your opinion on this, but because Ohio State had such they didn't even have 10 minutes worth of time of possession in the first half. The defense was out there forever.
Yeah, it felt equally clunky and equally like, what are we doing? Like, Will wasn't as sharp today as he's been, and you thought you make two nice leaps, right? From the Akron game to the Western Michigan game, he really improved. Then I think he took a step back. Yes, his numbers are gonna say a little bit different of a story, but he even acknowledged it in the post game. He goes, I threw my 2 touchdowns. I think the ball traveled 10 yards, and one of them was a sideways pass to Emeka that traveled no yards down the field that he took for 68 yards to the house. So I think he wasn't as sharp as we wanted him to be and as he's been. And honestly, the special teams was frustrating because when you notice the special teams, that's a problem, right? When you see that the kickoffs are going out of bounds and you see the fumbled punt. I mean, truthfully, Brendan, take it have that muffed punt be flipped. Have they not called that illegal formation on Brendan Ennis's muff punt, we potentially are talking about a different game, because it was 14-7 at that point. Marshall would have the ball first and goal from the 6 or 7. Instead, Ohio State takes that next one, and I think Quinshon goes 86 to the house on that very next drive. I'm not sure if it was that one, but it was definitely a touchdown that came off of that. So, I mean, that's a 14-point swing right there. And then you felt comfortable about the win, but until then, it just wasn't smooth. It wasn't what you wanted it to be. That said, it is still week 4 and it's still early on, but when you do these 3 preseason games before the Big Ten play, you want this one to look the part, and it just didn't feel that way today.
Yeah, and you know, look, I again, I don't want to like totally overreact, because you don't want the team to feel like they've got to be peaking at this time of the year anyways. You're supposed to be growing and getting better as the season goes along. I thought Ryan Day was going to snap Jaden Fielding in half.
Mm-hmm.
There's no excuse. Kick the ball in bounds. Kick it in bounds. 3 in a row against a good offense. You're gonna you will lose a game if you do that against a good team.
That's the thing. Some of this stuff does get masked because it's like, oh, we came out and we were able to, the defense forced the 3 and out, or whatever the case is. But that stuff, like you said, when it rears its ugly head against a better opponent, against Oregon in 3 weeks, that changes things, and you just can't have those small mistakes, because those little things add up and they become something big against, like you said, a better opponent.
So, I mean, I walk away from these first 3 games, not just today, feeling like, okay, the home run power is there. And to look at, the touchdowns that Ohio State scored today, 68-yard, pass and catch to Egbuka that, as you mentioned, really the throw wasn't very far at all. It was basically all Emeka. An 86-yard touchdown run from Quinshon Judkins, a 40-yard touchdown run from Travion, and a 53-yard touchdown pass to Jeremiah Smith that Ryan Day acknowledged postgame, like, hey, that was actually a good adjustment between Howard and Smith to recognize that that's kind of where the soft spot of that coverage was going to be, and cut the slant underneath it. I mean, good pass. JJ, I thought, made a really nice catch with a defender on him, and once he broke the tackle, see ya.
Gone. See ya. Nope. That's the cool part about this offense, and Will was talking about it. He goes, literally every play could go, and you never know who's it's going to be. It's going to be – Emeka had his kind of coming out party today, and I personally have been hoping for that sooner rather than later, just because he's your veteran guy, he's the leader, and he's a guy that is Ohio State football when you think about this particular version of the club. That said, JJ can go. Quinshon showed his home run ability today, which was so good to see. And even Travion. Travion goes for 40. Well, I think it was a 40-yarder. That felt small compared to the other ones today, but he's got the home run ability every time he touches the football. And that, while we talked about what could go wrong against better teams, the home run stuff, while it may be fewer and further between, when you have that against those better teams, which we're going to start seeing, that's how you can change games and do it really quickly. If you're down, or if you're starting slow, or even if you're trying to pull away, you get a big home run like we got a couple of today. Those are what separates teams.
Yeah, I mean, listen, a 40-yard touchdown of any kind, you feel really good about. That was the 4th longest touchdown of the day, right? Mm-hmm. So to me, that's more a condemnation of, Marshall's weakness was their defense. I thought Marshall offensively presents some problems. They're pretty good. They weren't going to win this game, but Stone Earl, not a bad quarterback. Tough. Elijah Metcalf, like, tough little receiver, man. Mm-hmm. Fitzpatrick, I know he didn't have a big game today. They showed the highlight on TV from the big catch he had against Virginia Tech. Like, the kid can play. And I got to be honest, man, I thought early in the game, like, they were matching Ohio State's physicality and toughness at the line of scrimmage for probably the first 22 to 23 minutes of gameplay. And
that was the biggest thing that caught my attention, was that it wasn't just, a big play here or hey, a big run, because Marshall has shown the ability to do both of those things. It was up front. They were matching Ohio State's physicality, and that's been something we've been preaching. And we've been saying that it's been getting better, but when Marshall was on offense, I think it was a tale of two teams, if you will. But when they were on offense, I think they matched Ohio State physically. And then, like you said, Stone Earl, I'm a fan of his. I don't know if he'll play in the NFL. I don't know if he'll play in the CFL. I don't know if he's going to be selling insurance next year, but I'm a fan of his because that dude is tough as nails. And from a quarterback who I was undersized. I was a little bit slower, didn't have the strongest arm, but cared a lot. This dude on the first drive, I was just watching him, and he was firing up his team. He was sticking his nose in there. He was trying to run over Sonny Styles and trying to run through Caleb Downs. And, yeah, he'd probably lose that battle 9 times out of 10, but he was showing his teammates, hey, I'm going to battle today, and your guys are going to come along with me. I was really impressed by Stone Earl and the entire Marshall offense, to be honest.
Yeah, and I hope he's okay, because it sounds like he went into the medical tent and did not come back. 16 of 21 for 132 and a touchdown were his final numbers. It's pretty efficient. 76% completion percentage. They just don't have the over the top hitter the way that Ohio State does. Will Howard's numbers ultimately ended up being pretty good. 16 of 20 for 275, 2 scores and a pick. That was the other thing. Like that won't necessarily show up on the stat sheet other than, hey, your quarterback threw an interception. I didn't really love the route that Jeremiah Smith ran. It just felt like you pin yourself against the sideline. He wasn't really sharp the first half of that route. Then's trying to catch up like, the ball's actually being thrown to me. It almost felt like it was intercepted when the ball was at its peak in the middle of the air.
That's going to be one we'll definitely have tomorrow when we break the film down, because that's such a good learning tape, because this is, got to remember, Jeremiah Smith is 18 years old. His school's doing prom next week. Like, this is a guy that is so young to this and new to this. And this is such a learning experience, because he's never been matched athletically by anybody who's played against until today. And so he's been able to just easily run by dudes. Well, there's a certain technique you have to have when you're running those verticals down the sidelines. And as you said, Brendan, he got pinned against the sideline. And when you do that, there's nowhere for the ball to go, because it wasn't a bad throw. The DB caught it on the hash mark, like on the hash mark of the sideline. That's exactly where you want the ball to be. The problem is your receiver was out of bounds because he lost his leverage. He's going to learn from that one. That's one certainly that Ohio State tomorrow in film is going to circle and be like, all right, Jeremiah, here's what we have to do, and here's the attention to detail that he will definitely get better from. And I'm excited to talk it through with all you guys tomorrow, but I'm excited to see how he responds to that coming in the next couple of weeks.
And look, I don't know that I thought it was a great pass, but it was good enough.
Yeah. It's definitely not one that should have been intercepted.
I thought maybe it hung up a little bit, but Smith can outrun something so quickly, it's hard to really tell. But to your point, like when you're that tight to the line, man, if you're going to complete the pass, I mean, your window's like that big.
No chance.
I know in the NFL, like that's a thing. These guys are all really good and have big futures, but that's a really tight window.
Yeah, and it's a drum all bang till the day I die, but receivers should have interceptions too. They should have a stat that says interceptions, because sometimes quarterback throws a fine ball and sometimes it gets picked off. And that was one that I think's more on the receiver than it was on the quarterback. But a learning note.
I love it. I love it. Quinshon Judkins, 14 carries, 173, 2 scores. Trevion, 6 carries for 76 and a couple touchdowns. James Peoples, 6 carries for 31 yards. Emeka Egbuka, 5 catches, 117 and a touchdown. Carnell Tate, 4 catches for 64. JJ Smith, 3 catches, 70 yards and a touchdown. A couple of passes out of the backfield to Judkins. Those were some of the big numbers. The couple things that certainly caught my attention early on, Ohio State, I'm pretty sure only had 2 third down plays the whole first half, which is wild. I mentioned that from a time of possession perspective that, Marshall basically had the ball for almost 22 minutes in the first half. They ran 47 plays to Ohio State's 21 in the first half. And yet Ohio State had a 28-14 lead at that point. It was brought up on the TV broadcast. I thought this was really interesting. I almost my eyes popped out of my head when I heard this. They went down to Jenny Taft on the sideline and she said, hey, everybody's been talking about it's a warm day and guys are trying to stay hydrated and so on and so forth. She said she had like an infrared thermometer and she shot the field, the turf. Said while it's a feels like temperature outside of 90, she said the heat coming off the turf was 145 degrees. It's like 145.
Wow.
No wonder the defense was a little bit slow in the first half. They were out there standing on the field forever.
And it's a double-edged sword too, Brennan, because you talk about, hey, they did dominate time of possession, but the bad side of those big home run plays, like Ohio State's first drive, they were on the field for 2 plays. They ran the ball and then threw it to Emeka Egbuka, and he was gone, or something like that. Maybe 4, just not a ton of plays. So the defense, while everyone's excited and this place is going nuts and the band's playing, the defense, we got to go back after a huge drive that took them right down the field. That does now. All the defenders said it, and there's some really funny quotes. They're like, hey, we're never going to tell our offense not to score quick. Like, it's awesome when they do, but it does factor in, and you could see it it was a drive towards the end of the first half, or maybe the start of the third quarter, where Ohio State went the length of the field and really had a tough, long drive where they punched it in the end zone, and their offensive line was just beat, like hands on knees, like just trying to grind it out to finish. And you're like, man, from the up in my cozy spot in the press box, it looked fine, but down on the field, if it was 145 coming off the turf, I don't care who you are, that's really, really challenging.
Well, I mean, I know you're not standing on the field, you're kind of off of it here at the moment, but do you feel that kind of heat?
Yeah, it's really, and the other thing too, there's not a cloud in the sky, and there hasn't been a cloud in the sky at all. So it's just been dead sun for the last 4 or 5 hours, and it's quite warm down here. And even when I was walking around pregame, and all the guys, their warm-up t-shirts were drenched in sweat, and like you could tell, like, hey, it's going to be a workman's day. The coach Mick, the strength coach, was probably pumped. He's like, all the boys are going to grind today. But yeah, just one of those things you got to deal with. Quinshon had a funny comment. Somebody had asked him how this heat compared to the heat in Mississippi, and he's like, not even close. This is a cool morning compared to Mississippi.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. All right. Biggest thing you want to see Ohio State do this week as they get ready to start Big Ten play with Michigan State coming up?
Yeah, the sense of urgency's got to just skyrocket, right? You can say it all you want, but you just go from playing Akron. You play two MAC teams. You go Akron, Western Michigan, and you come back with Marshall. We're going into East Lansing, and Michigan State probably isn't the best Big Ten competition, but it's Big Ten football. It's going to be a whole different kind of player. You're going to finally be punching in your weight class. So all of the silly little mistakes have to go. I think they were very clean in terms of operation today. No real false starts, no misalignments, none of that stuff. But you did have a turnover. You can't have that. And then on defense, I really want to see quicker starts. Like, there's been a couple. Akron got down the field, scored on their first drive. Today, Marshall marched pretty much right down the field and scored. And then from a special teams perspective, let's be clean. Let's make our kicks, keep the ball in. Let our guys be guys. Like, this is the best roster in football. Just let them go play football, and I think you're going to be fine. But for me, we need to see an uptick in the sense of urgency. I think you will, but it's now's the time, because it's Big Ten football from here on out.
2 other things, and they're more coordinator specific. I really liked, in general, the way Ohio State's secondary played today. Specifically, I thought Caleb Downs, Jordan Hancock, Lathan Ransom all had really good games. And at linebacker, I actually thought Cody Simon was flying around. It was good to see him getting, especially left and right across the field. I thought his speed toward the sideline today was good. What were your overall thoughts around defensive play calling, scheme, ability to collapse the pocket, all of that?
So I go 2 ways. First, the play calling felt a little vanilla. It felt like, hey, Jim Knowles was holding a little bit back, which makes sense, right? You don't want to open up the whole cupboard in a game like this. So I think that they left a little bit to be desired there, but it's fine. You give up 14 points, that's okay. What I do love is that trio in the secondary and against offenses like this, right, where it's more air raid. You're going to get a lot of passes. You got a good quarterback who can also run. When those dudes can all 3 of them can both play in the post, but they can also play on the line of scrimmage, and they can play in the box, and they can guard guys man to man. None of them have to come off the field, and it's funny to watch. They're just like in this little circle where if one goes back, the other comes up. If the other goes, they can rotate. It's a really special group, and that's going to start setting this defense apart, because I've said it a couple times, and it hasn't really been evident against this competition, but when you can dictate personnel based on the defense, that sets you apart, because you're not having to be reactive to the offense. You're setting the tone, and Ohio State can do that with that trio on the back end. So it's a point that I love to keep watching over the next couple of weeks.
And then on the offensive side, I mean, look, obviously we talk a lot about the talent in the wide receiver room, and when you see big explosive plays like this, it makes you feel really good. Hey, we scored 49 points and we had 569 yards of total offense. And, look at the balance, 289 through the year, 280 on the ground. Like you want to pat yourself on the back and feel good there. But because there were so many of those broken big plays, maybe it's hard to really, correlate that with play calling itself. It's a weird line to walk, right? Because coaches will often say, like, you could call great plays, but if they don't work, they're not great plays. And so maybe you don't call great plays and they work, and hey, look, they look great. So, trying to piecemeal all of that together, how did you think, version 3 of the Chip Kelly offense looked? Because I thought week 1 to week 2, you saw a lot more fun and flair. I don't know that I saw quite the same what I was hoping for today for some of that creativity, but to your point, maybe not giving it all away.
I think Chip is just scratching the surface. There's going to be a couple new run concepts that we haven't seen yet that we'll show tomorrow morning. But they got this new little counter scheme that they introduced today that went for a bunch of big yards. I think that this run game, and now this stat isn't 100% confirmed. I overheard it on the TV broadcast, so I'd have to relook at it, but it's definitely close. Over the last 2 games, Ohio State's rushed for 519 yards and 11 touchdowns. If it's not that exact number, it's somewhere close in there. And why that is important to me is that Chip Kelly has been known to be big play Chip. A lot of points, a lot of fun, fast action, touchdowns everywhere. But it's all built on the run game. And Ohio State has 2 of the best running backs in the entire country. Their offensive line is making strides to getting better. And he's starting to trust everybody a little bit more to get just a touch more creative each and every week in that run game, because that sets everything else up. So I was really impressed by the offense today, even though we didn't see it much. And it wasn't because of the big plays. It was because of some of the little intricacies that were introduced today that get me excited for what's to come.
So I'm trying to pull this up here in real time. The offense against Western Michigan ran for 273 and 6 touchdowns, and today 280 and 5 touchdowns. So it's 11 touchdowns,
553.
553. Yeah, 70 carries for 553 and 11 scores the last 2 games. Is that good? I think that's good.
Pretty darn good. That's pretty darn good. I don't care who the opponent is, man.
That should work. All right. Ultimately, look, it's a good win, 49-14. You're not going to go to bed feeling like, oh, this thing stinks. And I don't know that there are like glaring weaknesses, but I thought Ohio State today showed that they're beatable. Yeah. And I was hoping that through 3 weeks that they would suffocate the first 3 opponents they played, because they are so much better than Akron. Western Michigan is respectable. I mean, they led Wisconsin in the 4th quarter. They're okay, and it was a good win. They shut them out. Hard to get upset about that. Today, I thought they played really well for most of the game, but too many really dumb self-inflicted penalties that against good teams are going to put you in positions where you have to make plays because you don't have the cushion. So I feel, if I'm an Ohio State fan, I feel really good about, we got a team that can go out and ball and can score with the best of them. But I don't know that I feel like this team is, line them up against Georgia and let's go. Line them up against Texas, no problem. Like they don't look quite yet to me like the overwhelming dominant team that I think everybody expects them to be this year. Is that fair?
I think that's absolutely fair, and that's a point that is it's what it is. We were hoping that they would be really dominant going forward, but they haven't been. So they got the opportunity now. It's really hard to also get up for 3 straight games that aren't the best competition. So you don't know how that factors in, but they have a chance moving forward to correct that and get it right on the next couple of weeks.
Lots more to come. Ohio State 49, Marshall 14. We'll continue to break it down for you over on si.com/college/Ohio State. Of course, we're the Ohio State Buckeyes on SI, and you can follow us on our YouTube channel as well, of course, by the same name, and certainly on the Buckeye Breakdown podcast. For Anthony Meglin, I'm Brendan Gulick. Coach Meyer used to say it all the time. Best thing about being 3-0, chance to go 4-0. And they will be on the road next week in East Lansing to try to do just that. We'll see you along the way as we continue our coverage of the Ohio State Buckeyes.